Welcome to the Brett Johnson .biz podcast, where we discuss business on purpose, radically fresh leadership, capital that transforms society, and marketplace stories that embolden difference makers. Well, welcome to the Repurposing Business podcast. I am delighted to be with Andry and Priscilla, who are in Antananarivo in Madagascar. So we're going to chat a bit about Madagascar, then their story. And by the time you get to the end of this, you're going to have Andry's wisdom and Priscilla's encouragement about how to get out of the friend zone, which is an interesting thing. And it's a huge and it's a massive thing, you know, as many people want to be in relationships, want to be married. And when I met Priscilla and then Andry, it's an interesting story, which we're going to unpack. But let's rewind a little bit and tell us a bit about Madagascar. Many people just know the movie, with little animals flying around and so on.
Yes.
But tell us about the country, and then let's tell us a bit about where is it, how big is it, how many people live there, and so on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so my name is Priscilla, and his name is Aquila. Oh, Andry, sorry. Okay. So Madagascar is an island. It's a beautiful island, actually, with a lot of resources, beautiful people, peaceful people, let's say. And it's located, for those who don't know, just when you look at the map, it's on the right, at the right of Africa, the big continent. So we are just an island next to Africa. We have other islands around Madagascar. If my geography is right, I don't know if Madagascar is the third or the fourth biggest island in the world. Fourth. Okay. So we are quite big. We have 5,000 kilometers of coast.
Wow.
So that makes us, quite big. And the people in Madagascar, 39% of the GDP is from agriculture. 85% of the people are in the rural area and doing farming.
Wow.
So that's a bit of background, just to say as well that I just want to tip in something that this will be something that will save the world, like in the near future, let's say, because we have organic food in Madagascar.
Yeah.
And if you have never been to Madagascar, I would like to take this opportunity to come and see. We're here, and everyone is welcome.
Yeah, my name is Andry, and I serve the Lord since 15 years now. I live in Antananarivo. I do not come from Antananarivo, but I come from a small city called Antsirabe. But I'm now living in Antananarivo, in Madagascar, and Madagascar is really a beautiful island. It's really full of specific and endemic plants and wildlife, and it's really a big island. It's, as she said, the fourth biggest island in the world. And what is happening in Madagascar now is really amazing, because we are seeing Madagascar is made up of 80% of Christians, but now the Christians are becoming more and more revived, and we are seeing really and experiencing the start of revival, whether in the churches or in the marketplace. And that is something that is really a move of God in the country now, to give you a little bit of context of what is happening in Madagascar.
Same.
And we hope that it's going to be more for the economic aspect as well for the future.
Yeah. Fantastic. Now, my first trip to Madagascar was 2018, and that's when I met Priscilla. I think, Priscilla,
Yes.
you were there to meet us at the airport when we arrived with a small team to think about transforming society and what God's doing there, and particularly with a group of folk doing stuff in the marketplace. And it was just a wonderful visit. Great to meet people. What struck me about it when I got there was it seemed a bit more like Indonesia than like Africa in some ways. And
Yes.
I've been to Indonesia many, many times. And then I discovered that, 2000 years ago or something like that, many, many years ago, the Indonesians were the first people to arrive in Madagascar. Is that the story? Apart from some indigenous people, right?
Yes, I'm not quite sure about the time, but we have part of our ancestors are Indonesians. Yes, you're
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was quite interesting. And the Indonesians are great at organizing events and so on. And I noticed when we got to Madagascar, you guys were super organized. Everybody had their name badges, everything was printed out, logos and so forth. So it was like an Indonesian style something. It wasn't running on African time, 15 minutes late and so forth. It was very, very interesting. And of course, there are some people from the Corona from India, some folks from there, some from Africa, some from Indonesia. So it's a bit of a melting pot of people. And
Yes.
yeah, I loved it. And even though it's an island, Tana, it just seems to be whack in the middle of the country. And I was surprised how hilly it is and to see rice growing and aquaculture and other things happening so close to the city itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and for those who haven't been, it's got a mixed colonial background, a bit of British, a bit of French, and so on. But it seems almost like the French influence has been the biggest from an architectural and
Exactly.
the old cars and so on. So I don't know what the Brits were doing, but the French seem to leave the baguettes and the croissants and everything behind, and even some good restaurants. So yeah, it's a very
Yeah.
interesting place. Yeah,
The
good.
Brits brought the gospel.
The Brits
Yes,
bought the
they did.
gospel, the
Yes,
French
they
bought the fruit. Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
that reminds me of the difference between heaven and hell. What do they say? Like in in heaven, they say that the police are British, the French are the chefs, the Italians are the lovers, and and it's all organized by the Germans, and then in hell, the British are the chefs, and the Germans are the lovers, and the French are and it's all organized by the Italians. That's anyway. It's a bit of a bad joke, but there we go.
Yeah,
But
I get
you
it.
seem to get the best of both things there. Yeah, wonderful. Good.
Mhm.
So when we came in 2018 and I met you, Priscilla, this is kind of where the story goes, is you were doing many things, a very capable woman, and we haven't talked much about your background, but both of you are translators and interpreters, which is great. Priscilla, you had a YouTube channel. You were doing music at the time. You had your
Yeah.
own business, and I mean, you were a pretty independent woman, and there was no well, there might have been a man in sight, but I didn't see him. And it was very interesting. And you were there as a very, very competent single lady. And like many other competent single ladies, sometimes you can end up in a situation where men just don't have the confidence to approach you because of what's going on.
Yes.
And then, of course, you came to Cape Town for a big weekend. You went back, and lo and behold, the next time that I got to Indonesia, you introduced me to your husband. And in between there's a story that I'd love to unpack. So take me
Yes.
back to the conversation when you had a group of friends around at your place and you were discussing singleness and so forth. And one of them sort of issued a warning to you about your independence. Do you remember that? And
Yes. Yes. Yes.
unpack that for us, and then how Andry interjected and so on. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just put it into context. So I was living in an apartment alone, and it's an apartment with 3 rooms, and I had one room for guests. I really loved welcoming guests, welcoming missionaries, welcoming friends who are late in Tana at night. So like there is a network of young people who know Priscilla. And then they know that if they are late in town, they cannot go home, they can go to my place. So I have many people coming over, and I like to receive people in my house. every Independence Day as well, I like to have people over, like many young people. And Andry was part of them. He was one of my friends back then because I met him in 2016, where he needed a place to stay with his friend. And they asked me to stay for 2 weeks, but they ended up staying for 2 months.
We
Yes.
were greedy.
Yes. So yeah, and that's how we became friends actually. So because we talked, and I was also very impressed by his relationship with God. I was intrigued by who he was as a friend because he was fasting a lot. He was like closing the room and he would never go out of that room until the evening. And then we could speak in the evening, and we shared about many things, about spiritual stuff, and there was a bound being friends. And then he went, but from time to time he visited me. We spoke on Facebook. Then in 2018 there was the that event on RIP, and then okay, it was in 2018 in June. In June we had the Independence Day. We did some skewers, had some snacks, and we were about like 20 young people at home. Then we started the conversation between girls, yes, boys. So we were speaking like, girls are like that, boys are like that, like this and that. And then they shooted at me, like the guys. They said like, no, Priscilla, she will stay single. She has everything. She doesn't need anyone. Like she has a ministry. She doesn't need anyone. That's all. And then he was the one who defended me before everyone, saying like, no, she could be like Drosmeyer and her husband is supporting her, something like that. And yeah, and then I told them next year, this time, I won't be single anymore and you will see it. That's what I told all of them. So Andrew was there, and he defended me before like all of the guys because there was like a clash between boys and
Yeah,
girls, and then
yeah,
people started to shoot at me.
yeah. Do
Yeah.
you do you think that many competent single women get sort of put in that box by men saying, "Oh, you'll never get married. You know, you're way too independent. You're self-sufficient. You don't need a guy, so you're gonna end." Do
Mm.
you think that that label gets put on many single women?
Yeah, I think so. Sometimes people don't say it, but they just act according to what they believe it, and they act accordingly. And then these guys told me like, if you buy a car, it's finished. You won't get married. It's finished.
So that
Because
would be the last thing of independence. If you got your own car, then you were
yes.
done.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So then Andre stepped in and
Yes.
stuck up for you in front of everybody, stuck up for you and said, no, I mean, she could be amazing and her husband could be a support person, which is it's quite something to say. And what prompted you to say that, Andre? Is it just what you believed or because you'd got to know Priscilla or what was it?
I think that it is just because God always has a best setting for everyone, and I
Mm,
just believe that that time that God has the right setting for her, even
mm,
though it was difficult for as human being to believe it. I believe that even though she was at a certain level professionally,
yeah,
and also she has a high standard of living. I believe that God is able to give her the right person,
yeah,
not necessarily at the level she is, but it is possible for God to really give her a man that could be complementary with what
yeah.
she already has. So that's
Okay.
why I told them that no, you see, God can take someone that could really be the missing puzzle for
Yeah.
her life. So it is
Yeah.
possible for God, even though humanly thinking, it seems to be difficult. So
Yeah.
that's why I
So you're saying that God could have brought somebody along who might not have been a good fit initially, but God could grow into that role to be a puzzle piece with her.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I was saying that it's like they might necessarily be the same, and
Yeah.
maybe the guy will not be at immediately at her level.
Yeah.
But as time goes by, God can always grow up things so that they can really be complementary.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Yeah. Now, Priscilla, you came to Cape Town shortly after that, and at that time, I think you'd come out of another relationship, right? And
Yes.
because I remember you spending a bit of time on your own and so on, and there being some conversations around that, and
Yes.
something you decided wasn't going to work or whatever. I don't need to know the details, but at
Mhm.
that point, as you were tailing off of that, then Andre started to ping you and started to reach out to you a
Yes.
bit more. What happened there with you two? Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. I didn't know if I told you this detail. This one I'm going to tell you now, but just after that conversation, I decided, oh yes, I did. I decided not to, because I was out of a relationship and I was hurt, I was feeling bad. It was hard actually. And I had a lot going on in me. And I just was like, I need to get healed. I have to do things. And sometimes work was a way for me to forget things. And I worked harder than I did. But then there was a time I decided not to w weave a conversation with God, to just focus on me and God and not let other guys, because there were too many of them getting around me. I was scared to be hurt again. And I just had my friends speaking to me because I could detect as well when someone wants to be in a relationship with me by the way they talk, and sometimes I just don't want these things.
Yeah.
And I just said, like, it's just me and Jesus. I work on my relationship with Jesus, and that's all. And then the guys would be bye bye. That's that's what I experienced during that time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, Andre, you decided to take some initiative, right? And because I mean, you were a friend, you were a good friend. She knew you, and you were in America. I don't know what they call it in Madagascar, but they call it you were in the friend zone. And that happens, nice guys, they're good people, they're solid people, but girls view them as friends, but not as romantic partners. So what did you begin to do to get out of the friend zone? And what sort of initiative did you take? And then Priscilla, tell us how that felt to you and how you responded.
Mhm.
Yes, thank you for the question. Actually, what I did was I started to talk with her more often than before.
Mhm.
That's how I did because she was in Cape Town and she was there for a few days and
Two
I
weeks.
for 2 weeks and
Yes.
I took that opportunity to ask questions to ask her about what she was doing there and I started to be more talkative than
Yeah.
before. And then she had 3 hours waiting at the airport, and
Yeah.
it was for me like an open door to really be her company. How to say
Yeah.
that? And I told her I can be your friend during your waiting time because you are alone in a big airport. Let's talk and have
Yeah.
some nice discussion. And from that moment on, it was like we became closer than before, even though we were already friends. So that was the door for me to 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 act and to show step by step that I want to be more than just
Mhm.
a normal person in her life because I
Yeah.
was coming closer and closer. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how
And
did you perceive that, Priscilla? Yeah.
yes, I remember when I was I was staying at your place, and then I was staying at Marlene's place.
Yeah.
I was speaking to him like on the phone until like 4 in the morning. And
Yeah.
then Marlene said like, "What are you doing? You were still up, Priscilla?" And then she suspected I was talking to a guy and I was speaking to Andrew. And at that time already, he changed his way of speaking to me, of talking to me, and I detected it, but I couldn't really point the finger like this is what's going on.
Mm.
And when I was still at Marlene's place, I was asking him like, "What's going on?" And then because he was sending me, for example, the day before, he sent me a picture of a rose, and then I was like, "What does it mean?" Yeah, it was weird because something is changing.
Yeah.
And but I think it really is the way God used for me, like God used the door, God used that to close the door for any other guy, and he was
Yeah.
the only one who could enter the door. So that was really amazing. So
Yeah.
he sent the pictures. I said, like, what does it mean? He told me, like, ask the Lord. And then what? Yeah, but I kept on speaking to him, and then I start praying. And Jesus told me, okay, just speak. Don't give your back to him. Just speak normally. Just speak. So I continued speaking to him, but the more I spoke to him, there started to be something in my heart, like different than just a friend.
Yeah.
But I wanted things to be because I don't know, maybe I was too defensive as well. Like something happens, I know that wait, what is this? Tell me what this is, just to
Yeah.
be sure. And yeah, that's what was going on. And on that day at the airport, I was telling him that, okay, when I arrive, we meet and you tell me exactly what's going on. So that's
Yeah.
what we had an appointment when we arrived, when I arrived, and we had an appointment at my place. He was there.
Before
Uh,
you go there, let me just
yes,
ask you something.
sorry.
Do you
Yeah,
think if you had, I mean, you wanted to know what was going on.
yes,
He wasn't really telling you, he was just being proactive.
yeah,
Do you think sometimes people kill things by looking for too much definition? So God told you, just talk, get to know
yeah.
him. But do you
Mhm.
think sometimes people, men or women, can ask for too much definition, like tell me exactly where we are, tell me what's going,
Yeah,
and then
Yeah.
kill it. They stop it. They try to
Mm.
kind of
yeah.
Yeah.
unpeel the flower rather than let it bloom. Do you think that can
Yes.
happen?
Yes, it happens. And for people like me, I think there are people who are like me. We want to have control on things because we are scared. It is not being, it's not like a strong character, but it's fear
Okay.
because you fear to be hurt, you fear to be disappointed, you fear to have feelings, and then you don't see it happen because you want to protect yourself. I think it's vulnerability, but you don't know how to handle it, and then you just say like, what's going on? So that I can say I stand here or I stand here. So
Mm,
it's out of like, I don't want to be hurt.
mm, mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, so God told you just have the conversations,
Yeah.
be relaxed, be normal. Yeah.
Hmm.
And so my question for you, Andre, is when you were sending the emojis of the roses and things like that, were you just doing it, or did you know what you mean, or were you just kind of baiting the hook to see how she responded, or were you pretty clear on where you were going?
Yeah, I actually it's like it was already a start of showing that I was aiming at something more than just to be a normal friend. But
Okay.
it was like an indirect way because,
Yeah.
as you said, we are not obliged to always be very straightforward
Yeah.
because I've seen many people that uh, um, who didn't succeed
Yeah.
to be together because the other one knows that it might be the person from God, but they wanted to rush things. And I
Hmm.
Yeah.
didn't want to do that with her because I
Yes.
know that it has to go step by step, and we shouldn't On avait manqué une étape.
To burn the steps,
Yeah, we shouldn't
to
burn
keep that.
or skip a step. And I wanted to really be soft at the beginning. So I was just sending like a picture, and
And a
then
song.
after that, I started to send a song.
Oh yeah.
I didn't tell her that, I want you, I want to marry you, I love you. I didn't say anything, but it was just like an image, and it was for her to start to think it over so that
Yeah.
she can meditate on it
And I did.
and see. And it was an opportunity for her to come to the Lord as well,
Yeah.
because it's like when somebody is around, I think the best wisdom is to come and ask the Lord, Lord, how about this?
Hmm.
And then the Lord will
Yeah.
guide as things evolve.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Priscilla, back to what you were saying, you were looking for clarity and you were responding to that, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, that there was the picture and then there was the song. And it's like, what's going on? You changed. But he said that, and I think it was very wise. And he's a person that is very calm. He's like still water. You cannot disturb him, even if I wanted to, like, I know if you don't tell, I will kill you. He would not move, you know. So it's lost already. So I just like, okay, I we can just speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. So you got back to Antananarivo and then you guys had a
Yes.
conversation? Oh,
Yeah, this is the one funny part of it. So I arrived, I don't remember the date, but I came home and the next day we met. He came over and I told him like, no, I want us to talk about things. I don't want things to be blurry. I want things to be clear. And then he accepted, okay, we can talk. And then he came. But then when he came, he didn't say anything, and I was angry and I told him to go. And he went. That was funny
yeah.
because he was
Why
there
didn't
and
you say anything, Andre? Why didn't you say anything?
It was just that because I didn't feel at that time that it was the right moment, and I
Yeah.
Mhm.
just wanna really I wanted us to know more each other and to
Yeah.
really share thoughts and feelings, but not directly to say that this is what I want. Do you accept me? But
Mhm.
Yeah.
I wanted to be smooth because before that time we were just talking online, and
Mhm.
I didn't want to say it at the very
First.
first day we met in person. So
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
wanted, it was, I think, the second time we met
Yes,
that I
that's the
told her
next time.
that now this is the goal of all these things.
Yeah. So the next time he asked to meet for a next time and I hesitated like, okay, shall I meet with him? Shall I not meet? But I accepted anyway. So if I didn't, I would have lost him.
Yeah. Good. So, Andre, you wanted to unpack the friendship a bit more. Priscilla, you wanted some definition, but Andre, you felt if you try to put too much definition on it, you were going to rush the process.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, Priscilla, you said, okay, I'll give this guy another chance. We'll have another conversation, right?
Yes.
And how did that unfold?
And so I invited him over again, like, okay, you can come. And then I sit and I would not say anything until he says something. So that was my way of helping him. So finally he spoke. I don't remember what exactly, but he spoke. And then, okay, I was already ready in my heart, like to say yes, because like the Lord also confirmed things.
Yeah.
And yeah, and the good thing is also that he knew me as a friend. I didn't have to hide anything because, you know, and when people start to be straight lovers, like, okay, we can date, and then sometimes you hide stuff because you
Yeah.
want to be good, but we knew each other as friends, and then he knows me, I know him, I know like he's like this, and yeah, I think that was a good part of it as well. They did.
Yeah, and then just in terms of your personalities, before you giving him a chance to
Mm-hmm.
speak, I mean, you're more outgoing, you're more extrovert and everything, Priscilla.
Yes.
Andry, you're quiet, steady, more introvert. And so, Priscilla, you needed to give him space to speak. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
it. Because sometimes I also am the kind of person, sometimes when, for example, when someone speaks, I tend to finish sentences of people, you know. Sometimes I know it already in my mind, and yeah, and I tried my very best, like say I worked on it like many years now, not to finish people's sentences. And for him, I just wait, okay, give him space, he will speak, and I will just wait, even if I hate waiting.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, Andry, you probably remember what you said.
Yeah, uh, I did. I did what but it took really a long time because it was really difficult
Yeah.
Yeah,
because
so uh, just 1 second. I saw when I waited for him to speak, he was like passing an exam. He
yeah,
was like, oh, like scared and not at ease and feeling uncomfortable. But I just say, okay, say it. Yeah, you can
yeah,
continue.
it was really
Sorry.
difficult. As you said, I'm an introvert person, and it really takes time for me to express what I have in my soul. So
Mm,
it was quite tough, but by God's grace, I could tell her that no, this is the reality. So what do you think about it? And that's how it happened. And
yeah.
yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday. But God is good, and
Mm,
everything went well. And I think that from that day on, we went together, and
yeah. So you put your cards on the table. You said, this is where what I'm feeling. This is where I think where I would like it to go.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
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 And also the one thing, maybe I didn't say this, but when we were friends, he had friends, or not friends, but they were girls who knew that I was his friend, and these girls even come to me because they loved Angie. There were three of them. And then sometimes I tell them, come to my house, we can pray together. And I even prayed for these people. And even sometimes I met him and I say like, oh, there is this girl that loves you and she's interested. And why don't you like her? Like we had that when we were friends. So, and he wasn't interested at any girl at that time. Like I was thinking like, oh, I was thinking he would not get married because I was thinking he was too spiritual. He's closing the door all the time. And I don't know what's happening in that room. That was what I was
Yeah, I
thinking.
was very prayerful at that time. I was really searching for high spiritual things, and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
you had to move out of this spiritual to be more practical and more normal, Andre, right?
Yeah, it was difficult to become a normal person again
yeah,
because I was like John the Baptist. I
the
was in the
Baptist.
desert, the Baptist. It's like I was going to the desert looking for the Lord, waiting for the time when He will tell me to start the ministry. I was like that kind of guy at that time. And
Yeah.
yeah, but then,
Yeah, and with all this background, with what we experienced, like when I told him like this and this girl he didn't want, I knew he was a serious person and he loves God. And when he like say proposed to me, he didn't like propose for a wedding, but I knew he was serious and he told me his intentions, and I knew he was not going to joke about it because I knew who he was. So I was confident that this is what's happening. When he said it with his mouth, there I know, okay, this is what's happening. So I positioned myself. I just said, yes, I didn't play the no, let me think about it, because we
Yeah.
often do that. But
Yeah.
I said yes straight away because I knew him. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So from then on, you guys were an item, as they say, and quite intentional, both of you progressing intentionally. How long did it take from there until you got engaged, until you got married?
Okay, if it depended on him, it would be 3 months, but
Yeah.
we dated for 5 months and then we got married. And so it was in November and we got married in April the next year. So we didn't wait because the intentions were clear. Things were clear. We did not want to like just date for a long time, but he wanted to get married in 3 months, but I said it was too quick.
Yeah. Very
Yeah.
good, very good. Well, André, I have very good friends. They've been married probably 35, 40 years or something like that. And they'd never been on a date, and he sent her a big bunch of flowers on a Tuesday, and she was changing jobs, and she said, well, there's a lot of flowers because I'm just changing jobs. And he wrote a note about the beginning of the rest of your life or something. She thought this was a little over the top, and then he asked her, what's the answer? She said, what's the question? He said, well, isn't it obvious? And she said, no, it's not obvious. He said, well, obviously I want to marry you, Anyway, that was on the Tuesday, and they got married on the Friday.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, he'd made up his mind, and
That's a record.
they'd been friends for a couple of years, but never actually had a date or anything. No, he just had decided in his mind he'd booked the hotel, he'd booked everything. Yeah, that yeah,
Wow.
she didn't even have time to buy a wedding dress. So 3 months is quite reasonable, Andre. Well done. Yeah, became 5 months. Very good. Okay, so how did your friends respond to this? Were they the people who said you thought he's not going to get married? They thought you weren't going to get married. How did they respond?
People were happy. Some people on my side, let Andrew speak later. People are happy, like friends, like the friends who spoke to us on that day, on the Independence Day, like, okay, oh, you guys we're happy for you. But I didn't remind them that, did you remember you told this? But I'm sure everyone remembered it. But people were happy. All our friends were happy for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone was happy. And some people as well were, how to say, not shocked, but astonished because Angie was super, super introvert. And like, how did he do? Like, Priscilla? Really? And but yeah, all kinds of
Yeah.
reactions.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Andre, did your being deliberate and intentional, did that encourage any other guys to get into gear and to move into action or not? What do you
Yeah.
think?
What happens was like, yeah, we after our wedding, some of our friends got
Yes.
married to many of them even,
Yeah.
and it was like it was a trigger for
Mm.
Yeah.
our community
Yes.
of young
Yeah.
people to really get in that new season of
Mm.
marriage.
Yeah.
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 So one of the things I forgot to ask you about, I remember Priscilla when we had conversations before Andre came on the on the scene. We talked a bit about the availability index. Do you remember
Yes.
that? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I
for
remember.
those who are listening, many years ago, I wrote a little booklet, actually two of them,
Mhm.
that had to do with how approachable women were, because uh, Priscilla, what her friends were effectively saying is, Priscilla, you have a low availability index, or you're not a very approachable because you're so independent. And the last straw will be if you get a car, then you're completely
Finish.
in your own league. You finished, right? And then
Mhm.
the other thing with when I had this conversation with women many years ago, and then they asked, well, is it the same for the guys? And I said, no, well, for the guys, it's an initiative index, because a woman can see across the room whether a guy takes initiative or not,
Yes.
and it's almost like we have a dial on our forehead over here about how much of initiative we have, or how approachable we are, how available we are. And so you went through the availability index book just on your own, right,
Yes.
Priscilla?
Yes. Yes, I remember. I don't remember the date, but you gave me the book. which I
Yeah.
started to read. I read it twice.
Yeah.
And I identified myself a lot in the book, especially in the independence part. I was an independent person.
Yeah.
No need to prove it. I knew it. Everyone sees it. And I also need to work, not like fake vulnerability, but no one can be independent 100%. So I needed to see areas of my life where I need people. I need to let people speak. Sometimes when we are in a group, sometimes I tend to speak most of the time. So, but I worked it with my friends first to see how available I am with my friends as well and
Yeah.
accessible. And I worked with it with the people around me. And yeah, it's like a character work that I did on myself. And yeah, it helped me a lot reading that book because I could see myself through someone else's eye and to
Yeah.
like looking in a mirror as well. It was a
Yeah.
mirror and to
Yeah.
see the reality of things and not to be defensive, but if this is the reality, what should I work on? How people see me,
Yeah.
like that. So it was a lot of insight. And I encourage people to read that book as well, even those who are teaching young people, because you are not necessarily looking for marriage anymore. If you're married, you may be married, but if you are in charge of like a group of young people,
Yeah.
you may want to teach that. If you are like coaching a group of girls, you may want to teach it as well. It would be a good idea to have like a group of girls, especially single girls or those who are not
Yeah.
single, but we need to work that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned talking it through with your friends, because that's where it's actually sort of worked the best, when a group of women get together or a group of men. Now, I've taken a group of men through the initiative index. I've never taken women through the availability index because it's something you can discuss among yourselves. And I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes when you have a mixed group, then you can get finger pointing and so forth. Um,
Yeah.
but when you talk it through with a group of friends, it's a great idea. I just had somebody in another city, a lady, go through the availability index because she was asking me some questions. So she read it through, and then there's the little self-assessment at the end of each chapter. Then she sent me her self-assessment, and I put it through the spreadsheet, and I said, well, here's your availability index. And of course, she said, what does it mean? And so we talked a bit about, just on WhatsApp, about the areas where there were bigger gaps, if you like, and she figured out what she needs to do. I mean, it's not rocket science, but if you can have the
Mm-hmm.
conversations, um, that's great. That's good. Yeah. So fantastic. So the availability index was a useful tool for you.
Yes, it was. Yeah,
Great.
indeed.
Good.
Very useful. This is
Yeah.
the result. And hospitality brought me here because you was there because of hospitality.
Exactly.
I love that. I love that. I have a good friend who said, yeah, unless the guy was an axe murderer or a serial killer, she would always have a first cup of coffee with somebody. You'd always and uh, and she was good about connecting other people. The Bible says it's better to give than receive. And sometimes you want to say, yeah, look, I mean, that guy's probably not going to be the guy for me, but I'll happily have a cup of coffee because he might be a good guy for a friend of mine, and so forth. So that's something. But the hospitality, and I love that, and getting to know somebody in that kind of context is a really,
Mhm.
really good thing. And I also like the fact that, Priscilla, that you didn't just do a knee-jerk reaction, because I find quite sometimes with singles is that, I mean, I've had single ladies say to me, just when I ask them about a guy, they'll say, no, 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 he's not my type. I'm like, you haven't even had a coffee with him. You haven't even had a conversation. You haven't, I mean, just don't say no, men and women, just
Mhm.
uh, you
Don't
know,
say no before you know.
don't say no before you know, and don't make fake excuses. One guy, he was friendly with this girl. She was a wonderful girl, but his excuse was she had thick ankles. I'm like, what? Is that the only excuse you can come up with? She has, so
Oh,
sometimes guys will come up with an excuse in their mind so that they don't have to go through exploring a relationship. Yeah.
hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Andry, your John the Baptist season over there, I noticed you don't have the John the Baptist beard and you're not eating locusts, but but
But I'm eating honey.
you're eating honey. Very
Yeah,
good.
a lot.
Great, great. Well, sometimes the one thing that focusing on your relationship with God did prepare you to hear God and did prepare you, did that give you a confidence? And I know it was a hard thing for you still to do, to break that barrier, but how did that help you in approaching Priscilla?
Yeah, exactly. It's a very good question. Actually, it really helped me a lot because I was a kind of person that do not move till I hear God
Yeah.
clearly on
Yeah,
something. So
yeah,
for me, it was really clear that that is the guideline from God. And
yeah,
my intimacy with God really helped me.
Mm.
And I was really very confident. At that time, I didn't even have a job.
yeah,
I didn't have any business. I didn't have like a livelihood, but I was
yeah,
just trusting God and I was living by miracles.
yeah,
And even in that context, I dared to approach her
Mm.
yeah,
because in my spirit, it was like I was just confident. I was
yeah,
bold because I knew that this was the will of the Lord. And I
yeah,
think it's really important for those who are really maybe in the same situation. It's really important to really hear God clearly when you are in a season, a particular season of
yeah,
entering, of finding your right match. And
yeah,
yeah, that really give me a high confidence. And I think it was my like my advantage because and I think it was the only thing in which I could rely on because I didn't have a car, I didn't have much money, I was not an influential person, but I just had God on my side, and
Yes.
yeah.
He made everything work.
Yeah.
Yeah, Andre, the one thing I appreciate is that in regard to your relationship with God, it was a spiritual matter. You had to hear God. But in regard to your relationship with Priscilla, you try to keep it natural. Uh, and I think sometimes we go the other way. In other words, we over spiritualize it with the other person, and we don't actually get God's confirmation on something. So but I mean, I've seen situations, as you would have, where a guy tells a woman, God told me you need to marry me. I've seen
Yeah, many
I've
do
seen
that.
Yeah.
seen that happen, yeah. But it's not actually God, it's just their desire. I mean,
Yeah.
God doesn't seem to tell these guys to marry the ugly woman. It's just like, there's some pretty unreachable girl, and instead of building a natural free friendship with them, they pull out the God card. So
Mhm.
you had a sincere relationship with God about this, but you were natural and you had to go through the natural processes in regard to Priscilla, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, good. So then, did you get the car, Priscilla?
We got a car.
We got the car. 1 year after our wedding, we got a car.
Yes,
Yeah.
1 year. No, months.
But I think I wouldn't have been afraid of a car even though she bought one before I approached her.
Even if she had a Ferrari, you would have been there with no job, with no
Yeah.
business, etc.
Yeah,
Yeah, very good, very good.
What tooth?
that's it.
Yeah, it's very interesting. One of the things we talk about, as you know, when we work with businesses and different types of capital, is that you have to have spiritual capital. And I see that in your relationship as well, because things require different types of capital, and there's
Mm.
relational capital and so on, but having spiritual capital and building that as you develop a friendship and so forth. And so very, very good. Great. So any last bits of advice you guys would have? Andre, let's start with you. So if there's a guy out there, there's a Priscilla in his life, and he's thinking, man, I don't have all my ducks in a row. I don't have a steady job, a pension plan, a nice car, all this kind of stuff, but I want to be intentional. What would you recommend?
Yeah, what I can say is that first of all, it's really important to know that when a person, I think that everyone in life has something that others do not have. And
Yes.
when a person meets God, God is able to value that thing that is specific to each individual. And I
Yeah.
think that it's really important to understand that that everything is possible when you let God manage things in your
Yeah.
path. And
Yeah.
that is really the very first thing I would say. But then I would also say that it's really important to have time to really be set apart and hear God in the silent, so that when you come out of that room, you would have confidence on what you're going to do, on the approach that you're going to adopt, so
Mm.
that you can really succeed the way you're going to
Mm.
to to talk and to approach
Mm.
your right match. So
Mm.
it's important to have clear guidance, and also to really work and act on God's timing. It's very
Mm.
important, and to not skip any step, but
Mm.
really ask the Spirit of God to guide through every step, so that because when you are led by the Spirit of God, it's like the God is also doing things on the other side, on
Mm.
the side of your or of your future partner, that he would match that afterward, and then it will really work very naturally. It will things will really be uh, uh, in a harmony that God has prepared. So it's really important to not rush things,
Mm.
but not to delay too much as well, but really act on every step at God's timing. So in
Yeah.
conclusion, I would say that it's very important to hear the voice of the Lord in every step.
And hearing the voice of God is practical things like send somebody a text, make a phone call,
Mhm.
send them a
Exactly.
flower, send them a song, not
Mhm.
like send them a sermon, something like that. It's just like doing the practical,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would say that it's really important to not be too spiritual as well,
Yeah.
Mm.
because as it has been said earlier, sometimes when you hear God saying that that person is your future spouse, you would immediately tell the person or tell her that you are going
God
to
told
we're
me.
going to get married because God told me that you are the one. It's like you have skipped many steps, but
Yeah.
it's like there are really processes to follow, so
Mm.
that at the end of the day, you will know that now it's the right time to tell her. But
Yeah.
it's really important to have an approach that makes things smoother and little by little.
Yeah. 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 Very interesting. And Priscilla, what
Yes.
advice would you have? Yeah.
What I would say, I was inspired while Andrew was speaking. I would say that to those girls out there who were like me as well, I remember one day I was praying with my two best friends. We were at that time we were all single, and every Valentine's Day, the three of us we get together and we pray for our husbands. And then we say, next year we won't be single anymore. The next year we come together and we pray. Next year we won't be single anymore. And then the next year. And then there was a day when we took a paper and we wrote our criteria of the men that we wanted. And sometimes I'm not saying that criterion are not good or whatever, but for me, like for my case with Angie, it's important how to say that to balance them because for example the outward appearance like physically I don't want to get too spiritual because I like Andry, like how he is. He's slim, he's handsome, and sometimes physical is like the outward appearance. It matters as well because you are going to wake up next to him every morning,
Yeah.
so we cannot neglect that. But I think the one criteria we need to have is that he's a born again Christian and he fears God, and we take it from there. Because if I look at the things I wrote at that time, and if I compared it to what Angie was before we got married, I would have not gotten married. But then after we got married, we worked together and he became the person that I wanted. So I just want to say that in the marriage we become, but it's not that you get like ready to use like a house and you get the key and you don't have to do anything anymore, but you have
Yeah.
to work on your own character. He works on his character. We work together on what we want. We discuss. So things are not perfect in the beginning, but it's a whole lot of process of growing. So yeah, we become in the marriage, and you take it from there, you work on the rest, but he needs to be God-fearing and he loves God, he's a Christian. And if you say you don't care about the outward appearance, it's okay. But for me, I did because
Yeah.
I would wake up, I open my eyes in the morning and I see him and I need to see what I need to like what I see. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Very interesting mix of things. Yeah. I think it's a good point that you make. A friend of mine once said that there's many Christian women who want to marry a 25-year-old version of the 60-year-old pastor. But the fact
Yeah.
is, the 60-year-old pastor wasn't like that when he was 25.
Yes.
It was his wife, the marriage, having kids, going through life that refined him, and so
Mhm.
seeing the potential in each other and being able to call that out of each other and encourage
Yes.
each other, spur each other on. So having that kind of dynamic is fantastic. So well done. Well, guys, thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing a bit about Madagascar, an amazing place where God is doing amazing things. And I love also some of you guys. You guys are both involved in things at a national level and some of the initiatives of what God is doing there. So blessings on your work. Thank you so much for being
Thank
part
you,
of the
Brett.
repurposing business community as well, the REAP community, through that training, being key leaders there, training up others in Madagascar. And we hope to bring a team out to Madagascar sometime and
Yes.
continue to work there with you guys. So God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you,
thank you so
Yeah,
much
Brett.
thank you
for
so
sharing
much.
Thank
Thank
today.
you,
you.
Yeah.
everyone.
God bless you, Brett.